Hey guys, it's me, Rezael Vita, Card Banger, Deck Profile. So guys, enjoy, don't like, comment, subscribe, and sorry. This time we're covering Keter Sanctuary for DC set 11 with Rezael. So this will not be the last time Rezael gets support, at least anime-wise, because we know for a fact Akina is going to return during the next season, but this is the last time that it will get support during the Deluxe arc. And during this arc, Rezael got a very interesting support card, which anime-wise makes sense. In my opinion, it feels a little contrived, but it's fine, considering they did at least try to build it up a little bit beforehand. So let's start, shall we, and see what we have. First today, we have our Energy Generator. It is our Ride Deck Crest. Do you remember Ride Decks in your Ride Deck? Auto Ride Deck, when you ride, puts a card to your Crest zone. If you want second energy, charge 3. Continuous, and has 10 energy, auto begin for ride phase, and charge 3. Then act once per turn, energy about 7, draw a card. Cool. All around pretty solid. You get a free 3 energy every turn. If you want second, you get an extra 3 on top of that. And if you ever have 7 energy or more at once, you can blast 7 of it to draw a card. We do have very important cards in this deck, and by cards, I mean card in this deck that costs energy. So more likely than not, we will never use that draw skill, but if we ever do have excess energy, well, you can use it on that skill. Moving on to our starter, we have Wings of Aspiration Soel. Great Zoe boost 5k shield, 6k base, auto roll upon for second draw card. Standard starter, nothing special for redraw if you go second. You make this any starter you want. None of the Ryan line really requires Soel, but I choose to make it Soel because it is Rezael's canonical starter. And at least now, confirmatively, it's Akina's most important card. Moving on, we have our Over Trigger and Light Dragon Deity of Honors Armor T Noah. Great Zoe boost 50k shield, 5k power. Over Trigger, remove Over Trigger in your deck. Reveal it as a trigger, move that card, draw a card, choose one is good plus mainly for the turn. If revealed it during a drive check, activate the dish effect, which until end of turn, you can also perform drive checks for the battle as your rear guards attack. So cool, it gives you rear guards drive check, which is really helpful for things like Gabwellius. If on random occasions you have to call Rezael's to the board, you can do that. You'll know Barris's and Rifistors and the Perfect Dragon, stuff like that. All around, it's a very solid over trigger to have. You could definitely make this Volna for consistent multi-attacking. I would personally recommend Exploria for not only getting you a heal, but kind of like guaranteeing multi-attack, especially on your slower turns, while also giving units plus 10k as well. But I prefer Armor Tinoa because I like to run the nation-specific over triggers rather than the Cray Elemental ones, even though I do think most of the time the Cray Elemental ones are stronger than certain nation over triggers. Ahem, Armor Tinoa. Moving on, we have our normal triggers. 3 copies of the front trigger and Bard of Heavenly Song and All Pack. Great Zoe boost 50k shield, 4k power. Front trigger continues guard circle. If your opponent's vanguards are grade 3 or greater, 5,000 to her shield, which is a 20k shield. He's also a front trigger, so you give 10k to your front row. Rezael can be built in one of 2 ways, either very aggressive or very defensive, or like some midway line between. In one of those builds, you run draw triggers. No, in here we run front triggers. We want to beat our opponent down with pure aggressive pressure. You could choose to make this the Divine Sister front who goes to Soul. However, I choose to make it Outpack because A, the Divine Sister front has no power, so if you have to call her to rear guard, and sometimes you have to do that, she won't benefit you. But also B, I prefer the extra shield value because sometimes that 5k shield does make the difference. And then we of course have 8 crit being a Rezael deck. So for Chevalmia, Great Zoe boost 50k shield, 5k base. Make this any critical trigger you want. I chose to make it Chevalmia though because it is Rezael's confirmed critical trigger. Then we have 4 copies of Blade Feather Dragon. Great Zoe boost 50k shield, 4k power, critical trigger, auto rear guard, but then it boosted, shove it to Soul, choose new, give it 2k for the turn. So pretty solid. You can use it to guard in the early game, and then you can recycle it back with the Divine Skill. Now, if there are points in the game where maybe you're not going to Divine Skill on your first grade 3 turn because you don't need to, but you have a Blade Feather in your drop zone, you can call it back via Rezael's skill, then send it to Soul. That way, during your next turn, when you Soul Blast for your Divine Skill, you can just Soul Blast out the critical trigger and send it back anyways, instead of having to Soul Blast a random card that you want to Soul, like a Rezael. Or if you end up having no berries, you can Soul Blast that too, but it's a nice card that can help you get Soul Charge as well. You can afford to make this of another crit. It doesn't have to be Blade Feather, but it's a nice card to have in the deck for a lot of your generic Soul Blasters, but also, you know, targets for Rezael and do that combo play I mentioned earlier. And then, of course, we have 4 heals and Bringer of Distance Sounds Arnis. Great Zoe boost 50k shield, 5k base. Make this any heal trigger you want. I just chose to make it Arnis because it, like Chevalmia, it's Rezael's confirmed heal trigger. You can also make it a counter heal, but I prefer the consistent 15k shield over the fluctuating 10 to 25k shield. But again, you can make it the counter heals too because Rezael is supposed to be that deck where you can kind of survive even if you do hit 6 damage. So I mean, you can rely on counter heals if you really need to. As for our grade 1s, we start off with 3 copies of Knight of Strict Spear Savorist. Grade 1 boost 5k shield, 8k base. Auto and place on rear guard circle by the ability of your grade 3 get a Vanguard of Rezael on the card name. Regardless of what grade the opponent's Vanguard's at, Soul Blast 1, and then all your front rows get 5,000 power for the turn. So cool. By eating into your soul a little bit, your front row gets 5k power, which is going to be really important if you're trying to bully down your opponent's grade 2 Vanguard, or just go for a final turn and Gambit with Savorist when your opponent's at grade 3. Very solid grade 1.5 for that reason alone, because it pumps your front row by 5k, but also auto rear guard at the end by that it boosted anything. If it was placed on rear guard circle by the ability of your grade 3 get a Vanguard of Rezael on the card name, it binds itself to draw a card. So cool. It increases your binding count, so if you're playing the Leo Immortal Hostage build, you can send it back to deck via that for PG purposes, but also replace himself with a draw skill and doesn't cost CB, energy, or even soul for that ability. The only parts I hate about Savorist is that he is required to be called by Rezael for both abilities, and well, you know, Rezael only does it on attack, so it does kind of suck if you're trying to have like different targets with a superior call. But on the bright side, again, at least he gives your front row basically half persona ride, which can benefit you, especially if you call him via Vita, who will give him 5k as well, and whoever else was called 5k also. But again, after he boosts, if he was called by Rezael, he can bind himself to draw, and none of his abilities require the opponent to be at grade 3, so it's a very nice card to aggro your opponent's grade 2 Vanguard down, which is a guarantee that you're set up for your next turn, so 3 of. Then we have 4 copies of the evolution of Soel, who for other characters I will give it to. For Kina, I don't want to, and I'll explain my reasoning why after I explain the skill. Wings of Life Brook Soel, grade 1 boost 5k show AK base. I'll say this, it has an amazing art. I love his outfit, I love his wings, I love like the rainbow that spawns for the radiance of his staff. Continuous rear guard, if your Vanguard's a grade 3 guard Rezael, gets 5,000 power, so 13k base during both players' turns. Auto rear guard, when it boosts a grade 3 guard Vanguard Rezael on the card, and you may countercharge 1 if you do it at the end of the turn, put him to Soul. And then auto rear guard to Soul, when your grade 3 guard unit with Rezael on the card is attacked, bind this card, choose the attack unit, and it gets 5,000 power for the battle. If you're buying those 2 or more copies of it, then it gets 5,000 additionally as well. So from the 3rd and 4th one, the unit chosen will get plus 10k, which is cool. And not to mention that it works on both Vanguard and rear guard that it protects. Not to mention the fact that that ability works while it's either in the rear guard circle or in the Soul 2. This deck already had a guaranteed countercharger since set 1 in the form of Aerial Sage. It also belongs to Keter Sanctuary, so it already has a handful of generic counterchargers. So it's really cool that Rezael not only got a upgraded Aerial Sage, where the only downside is it's not a 15k booster now, but it's still a 13k booster without having to discard a hand card. Not to mention the fact that it still gets you that countercharge. It also gets you a Soul card now and acts as extra guard power. Now, my gripe with Soel is for most units, I'll give it like, oh, the evolution back, you know, like how Chrono Jet evolved, or I'll even give like the Rezael evolving into Vita, like I'll give that. But Soel, it felt so random, because like it's not a main grade 3 evolution, it's a rear guard evolution, and it's obviously evolving from his starter. And while yeah, we all know like Soel is an important unit for Akina, they only started making that a point during the end of the Divine Z's Deluxe Arc Season 1, aka when he beat Kagetsu. I think he mentioned there, like, it starts from riding from Soel, then from there he gets to be the important unit of every single story. So that's the first time he did it, and then I don't think he did it against Megumi, and then he brought it up against Yu, and then he obviously brought it up against Michiru when he debuted this, and then he brought it up against, well, he didn't bring it up against Erika, and it's like kind of an important thing in the opening. But the point that I'm making here is it doesn't feel, it feels like it was kind of rushed, but I'm glad it at least debuted against Michiru and not against like Yu or Megumi, because then it would have felt too fast. So I'll give it that it doesn't feel too fast, but it just feels kind of unearned. Not you know what I mean. Like, I feel like it could have gotten a little bit longer before he got the evolution of Soel, but it's still a pretty cool card to have. Moving on, we have 4 cards of RPG and Bringer Protection Keflon, grade 1 boost, 0 Soul, 6k base, continuous Scepter, 4 Sentinel's deck, and also put on guard circle. Choose one roots, it cannot be hit in the battle. If your hands to more cards, and choose a card from hand, discard it. Standard PG, nothing too special about it, but that means if this and one of cards in your hand placed on guard circle, you don't have to discard. It's great because that means super aggressive in the early game. Basically spam every grade 1 and grade 2 under the wazoo, and then your opponent does eventually counterattack you, throw it on Keflon, you're good to go. Very good PG to have. You can be super aggressive in the early game and the late game, and your opponent still won't be able to break past you with this, so solid 4 of. Then we have our last grade 1 in the deck, one of the erratic, and on the main deck, a Patrol of Gus Van Testa, grade 1 boost back as shield AK base, auto road upon by Knight of Great Advance Ascensior, calls card to rear guard circle and soul charge 1, that contains rear guard during turn. Your Vanguard's a grade 3 or greater Rezael, gets 2,000 power. So 10k base when you're on a Rezael, so that can be really good for poking off opponent's pesky rear guards, and it's a free soul charge and superior call when you're on Ascensior, so you're not losing on any of your soul blasts. That may be important for things like save risk and the following few cards. Auto Van Testa is a really good grade 1. Most people run the Tranquil line, and then your grade 2 kind of depends on who you are as a person, but like most people run Tranquil in this slot just to get extra rear guard consistency. But at the same time, most people used to run Saragon, and now Saragon's banned, but my point is beside. So I prefer Van Testa because I like running the canonical ride line, so that already tells you what the grade 2 is, but cool. Superior call, free soul charge, nice card to have, one of in the ride deck. And then we have our grade 2s, 2 copies of Knight of Gentle Beauty Nobia, who I feel so bad. Like, Nobia used to be my favorite card in the Rezael deck because of like every single set that Rezael gets support and I actually try the deck build, I like the newer cards better, to the point where these last 2 sets I've had to genuinely debate about cutting Nobia, and the only reason I don't is because I genuinely do love Nobia as a card. Grade 2 intercept, 5k shield, 10k base, auto when placed on rear guard circle. If your Vanguard's a grade 3 or greater Rezael, regardless of where she's placed, when she's placed, you CB1, check the top 3, choose up to 1 card that's a grade 3 less from among them, call to rear guard circle and put the rest to bottom. However, if it's your battle phase, you reveal the card and put it to your hand instead of calling it. So if you superior call to reveal off of Ascensior ability, the grade 2 of the ride line, she'll be able to call something from the top 3 cards. If she's called by Rezael during the battle phase, she'll add a card from your top 3 to your hand, which is cool because she's one of the very few cards in the entire game right now in standard that can add a PG to your hand, so that's pretty cool. And then auto rear guard, when this unit attacks into a grade 3 or greater unit, if you have a grade 3 or greater Vanguard Rezael in the card name, Soul Blast 1, and she'll get 10,000 power for the battle. So cool. 20k swing for simple Soul Blast, and her Soul Blast skill can be used like after you send Noaris to Soul Blast Noaris back out. That way you can superior call him off of Rezael's abilities. That's a pretty cool combo you can do. But again, you mainly just use her for like the deck call skill / at the hand. But also, she's a 20k swing on her own, so you don't have to use a booster on her, which is sometimes the problem with multi-attack decks. Not a bad grade 2, but and again, she's really good, except we've had like so many good upgrades in terms of grade 2 that it's hard to justify keeping Nobia. At this point, you can run Nobia, you can run the new Dragon grade 2, I forgot what it's called, but it's the new one that specifies Beta 1 of Miracles Rezael in the card text. It came out the same time that Soel did. You could run that one. You could run that one generic grade 2 that like kind of is similar to Savers. I think it also came out during the same set that Savers came out in, either that or set 8, one of the two, or set 4. Or you could turn Nobia into the Dissection Angel, who is the basically painkiller plus that one Divine Sister grade 1 back in set 1 that could countercharge. You could run any of those cards in place of Nobia. I just choose to make a Nobia because I really do like Nobia and I don't want to get rid of her. Then we have our 4 copies of Impervious Dragon, so our newer grade 2. Grade 2 instead 5k shield, 10k base, auto place on rear guard circle or put on the guard circle. Choose a grade 3 card of Rezael on the card name from your ride deck and you may reveal it. If you reveal a card or your Vanguard's already a grade 3 or greater Rezael on the card name, perform one of the following according to the circle this unit is on. If it's on the rear guard circle, it gets 5,000 power for the turn. However, if it was placed by the grade 3 ability of your grade 3 or greater Vanguard Rezael on the card name, it gets 10,000 power instead of 5,000. And if it's on guard circle, it gets 5,000 power for the battle. However, if it intercepted, it gets plus 10k. So the intercept ability doesn't require either player to be at a specific grade. So if you went second and you want to 15k your opponent's grade 3 Vanguard for a 2 to pass, intercept with Impervious is a 15k shield regardless if you're on grade 3 or not. Or if you went first and your opponent's swinging for a 10k and you want to make it a no pass unless they pull you over, intercept with Impervious, there you go. But again, when placed on rear guard circle for free, it's a 15k base, but then if it was placed by Rezael, it's a 20k base instead. All around, it's a very solid grade 2 both offensively and defensively, and because Rezael can superior call back infinitely from drop zone and he has no way of binding himself, Impervious is just a very solid and free grade 2 that the only problem that you would have running this in your deck is the physical price of the card. So 4 of Impervious, solid card defensively and offensively. Then we have 4 copies of Knight of Bowstreaks Noaris, grade 2 intercept 5k shield, 10k base, auto when placed on rear guard circle by your grade 3 greater Vanguard's ability, this unit gets 10,000 power for the turn. And then auto rear guard, but at the end of the attack, if your Vanguard's a grade 3 greater Rezael, energy blast 3, yeet him to soul, draw a card, check the top card, put it top or bottom. When we first got Noaris, I did not think we would get a better rear guard than this, and I already thought Nobia was pretty good, so the fact that I thought Noaris was better, I thought we weren't going to get anything better than that. And then we got Rifistor, and then we got this. But anyways, the point I'm making here is when placed by the Vanguard's ability, he's a 20k base. Note that even though Rezael will be counted as a grade 3 when you ride over Ascensior, if you call this via Ascensior, since it wasn't called by specifically Rezael, it won't proc the skill. But then even more importantly than that, at the end of the battle that he's swinging, regardless of the opponent's Vanguard's a grade 3 or greater, he gets you the soul card, he gets you a hand card, and he even gets you a deck stack 2 for triggers, which is all around a pretty perfect card. All around, Noaris is an amazing grade 2. He does so much for the deck, and his only real downside is that he costs 3 energy, which you get every single turn. And again, you can loop him as long as you have copies of him in drop zone or any soul bounces that happen before Rezael attacks. So 4 of Noaris. Next up, we have 4 copies of the True Beast of the Moon, the other miracle who shines throughout space. Mystic of Miracles Rifistor. Grade 2 intercept 5k shield, 10k base. Auto when placed on rear guard circle, CB1, check the top 7 cards of your deck. Choose up to 1 grade 3 or greater card with Rezael in the card name from among them. Reveal it, put it to hand, and shuffle your deck. If you do not reveal a card, countercharge 1. So either get Vita, get OG for Vita, or just straight up shuffle the deck for free. And then auto rear guard when it attacks anything. If your Vanguard's a grade 3 or greater Rezael, it gets plus 5,000 power for the battle. So against grade 2, it's a 15k swing. Then if it was placed on rear guard circle by the ability of your grade 3 greater Vanguard Rezael on the card name this turn, again, like Noaris, it won't work if it's called by Ascensior, and your damage zone has 4 more cards in it. This unit gets 10,000 power instead of 5k, and if it got 10k from this power, and it's the 5th battle this turn specifically, your opponent cannot call Sentinels from hand to guard guard circle until the end of that battle. So it can lock down PGs, doesn't require the opponent to be at a specific grade, mind you. And if you're wondering how consistent you can pull that off, there is such a thing as taking a calculated risk. And I know some people, I haven't seen people play Rezael in a while, so I don't know if some people do this or not, but what I do sometimes is if I think I have lethal, I'll willingly let my opponent push me to 4 or 5 even on their first grade 3 turn. I mean, technically you can do this on their grade 2 turn too, it's just a little bit harder. But the point is, I let my opponent push me to 4 or 5, and then I just hard aggro them with Rifistor and Gabwellius, and basically make it so that my opponent dies that turn because they can't guard it because they didn't see it coming. I won a game one time because I went first. My opponent got really lucky on their drive checks with seeing criticals and they full out rushed me, but it worked against them because I had Rifistor in hand, so I just let them push me to 5, and then I beat the crap out of them with Rifistor, and because I was at 5 damage, they couldn't heal until they were at 6 damage, and well, that made them whiff a heal, and lo and behold, they lost the game that same turn. So, long story short, if you know what you're doing, you can afford to risk going to 4 or 5 and then just pure aggroing your opponent to death, because sometimes they're not ready for it if you do it early enough. Anyways, Rifistor, it's a very good card for early game setup because, again, it grabs you your Rezael just by being placed from anywhere by any means at any point during the game. But whether it's early game or late game, you can end up using Rifistor to clean up. You can either use it early when your opponent doesn't have the cards to counter it, or you can use it late after your opponent has exhausted all of the resources and they're barely left standing already. For Rifistor, very solid grade 3 for closing out games. It's just a great card. And then our last grade 2 in the deck, one of in the right deck and then the main deck of Knight of Great Advanced Ascensior. Grade 2 is at 5k shield, 10k base, altered and ruled upon by a grade 3 card Rezael in the card name to up to 1 grade 2 less card from your drop zone, call to rear guard circle. It's a free call of anything you want from your drop zone. You want a Rifistor for deck search? There you go. You want a Noaris to combo with? There you go. You want Impervious for numbers? There you go. You want Nobia for deck thinning / rear guard making? There you go. You want Soel because it's Soel? There you go. You want Strict Spear just because it's Strict Spear and you got no better targets? There you go. Like, this thing grabs you whatever the hell you want. Soel grade 2, one of in the right deck. And then we have our grade 3s, 2 copies. I don't know why people always say I gotta run at least like 3 or 4 copies of Gabwellius. Like, you see this thing often enough. You don't need more than this. 2 copies of Blessed Dragon Gabwellius, grade 3, 2 persona, 13k base, auto placed on rear guard circle. So about once check the top card, put it top or bottom. If you put it on bottom, it gets 5,000 power for the turn. So 18k if you deck stack, or just standard 13k, which means you probably have a trigger on top. Either way, very solid card to guarantee your drive checks. And then auto rear guard when it attacks anything. If your damage on his form recards it to end the battle, he gets 5,000 power. However, if he was placed on rear guard circle by the ability of your Vanguard, Fated One in the card name, and no drive checks were performed for the battle your rear guard attack this turn, regardless of what grade the opponent's Vanguard's at, CB1, he gets 10k and loses the drive and can perform drive checks for this turn. So he gets drive checks, which is solid. If you pull Armortino before you use his skill, well, you can do twin drive instead of having just to do a single drive check. Again, he deck stacks, he gets you good numbers, he can get drive checks as well. None of his abilities require you for your opponent to be a grade 3, meaning again, if your opponent gets really lucky or they just hard aggro you and they went second on your first grade 3 turn, if you have Gabwellius and Rifistor, punish them for it. I'm just saying this now. My favorite play is when my opponent does throw hands at me and then I willingly let them push me to high damage because I can just hit right the hell back. And even if they walk away from it, it's so funny to pull off the combo because every time I've done it, if they have walked away, they have walked away barely. Like, it involved them either sacking a trigger or they had like 2 PGs in hand and like they had to drop everything to block me. So I will take it. I love Gabwellius. It's a great support card. You can choose to have it at more copies, but with the amount of deck thinning this deck does, I honestly don't think you need to have it more than 2 copies. And then we have our 4 copies of Fated King of Miracles Rezael Vita. Some people run in the ride deck. I prefer it as our full main deck grade 3 and no copies in the ride deck because sometimes you do have to divine skill on your first grade 3 turn, and well, Rezael Vita doesn't get the divine skill inherently, so yeah, you're gonna have to wait that one out if you do put Rezael Vita in the right deck. So 4 copies in the main deck. Grade 3, turn to persona, 13k base. Continuous Vanguard. This unit is also regarded as Fated One of Miracles Rezael, and during your turn, this unit gets 5,000 power for each Fated One of Miracles Rezael in your soul and all their divine skills. So it gets Rezael's ability to send back critical triggers and get a drive. Not to mention the fact that for each copy it gets 5k. There was one game where I actually did get all 4 copies in soul by some miracle of God, so plus 20k right there. To be fair, that deck though was specifically meant to get all 4 copies in soul, so it's not like I waited 4 grade 3 turns, more like I just sent 3 of them into soul via card abilities and the last one happened to be in my hand. And then auto Vanguard, when it attacks into a Vanguard, like the original Rezael, CB1, chip to 2 cards from your drop zone with different grades and a total grade less than or equal to the number of cards you damage zone, call into rear guard circle. So you're at 5 damage, you can call a grade 3 and a grade 2, a grade 2 and a grade 1, but you can't call 2 grade 2s, etc., etc. Then, by putting a grade 3 or greater card of Rezael in its card name from your hand into your your Soul, choose a grade 3 or less card from your drop zone, call it to rearguard circle, and if your opponent's vanguard's at grade 3 or greater, all your units get called by this ability to get 5k power for the turn. It can send any Rezael to Soul to get that superior call, and it can do that regardless of the opponent's vanguard's at grade 3 or greater. Only the 5k is locked behind the opponent being at grade 3 or greater. So pretty solid there. It can initialize to 2 extra attacks. It gets you possibly 3 units, all for simple CB and a Soul card. Not to mention the fact that it gets stronger for every OG Rezael in Soul, while also becoming OG Rezael on Vanguard Circle, which works for OG Rezael specifying skills, but also with units that involve Persona Riding, like you can Persona Ride Vita off of OG Rezael and OG Rezael off of Vita, like we saw in the anime, thankfully. And it's just all around a very cool card to have in the deck. It has so much versatility, it gets really good numbers, and it's just basically, it's the OG Rezael, except a lot more aggressive and focused on attacking rather than just being there for defense, as it doesn't technically have the Divine Skill, but again, it inherits the Divine Skill of OG Rezael. So it's a very solid card to have in the deck as a 4 of, because you can search it and you want to have as many results as possible for his secondary skill. And our last card in the deck, 1 of in the ride deck, 3 of in the main deck, Faded 1 of Miracle is Rezael, grade 3 200% 13k base. So his first skill is almost verbatim the same as Vita. Auto Vanguard, when he attacks a Vanguard, CB1, choose up to 2 cards from your drop zone with different grades and a total grade less than or equal to the number of cards you damage on. Call him to rearguard circle, so it doesn't have the send a card to Soul, call an extra unit and get extra 5k, but on the bright side, you can still multi-attack with this, or you can call 2 units to the same column to end up getting extra numbers. Say, for example, you want Impervious and Soel from your drop zone to be able to survive your opponent's next turn because maybe you're playing Dragold. That's a possibility right there. Or again, you just call 2 units to the front row, like Rifistor and Gabwellius, to bully down your opponent. Furthermore, the Divine Skill, Act Vanguard, Soul Blast 1, return all critical triggers from your drop zone into the deck and shuffle it, and this you get +1 drive for the turn. And then until end of this fight, you cannot ride units that do not have Rezael in their card names, and you, the player, get when your damage check reveals a trigger unit other than a heal trigger. If your damage zone has 5 or more cards in it, choose a card from your damage zone to heal it, and you lose this ability. You may only use Divine Skill a total of once per fight among all your cards. All around pretty solid. For simple Soul Blast, you basically get all your triggers become heal triggers essentially, which is cool. Not to mention the fact that if you pull the over on the 5th damage, not only do you still heal from Rezael, but you also remove the over trigger. So basically you went from 5 damage down to 4, which is honestly pretty cool, and you got a hand card of it because of the over. But again, because it activates on the trigger check, you still get the benefit of the trigger. So if you ran draw triggers, for example, you still get a draw trigger while also getting that technical heal ability. All around, very solid grade 3 to have in the deck. Superior calls out units from the drop zone on your first grade 3 turn before you transition into Vita, and can still do that even after you go to Vita in case you want to go back to OG Rezael for Persona purposes. It gets you extra drive checks, and it gives you a live or die ability. Very solid grade 3 to have in the deck all around, and it's very nice that you can Persona off of one another in case sometimes comes up where instead of going into Vita's on attack skill, you want that Persona from OG Rezael instead, because even though it gives separate rear guards less power, it gives you more power overall because you're getting Persona out of it and you're still getting 5 attacks either way. Very solid grade to have the deck. Nice to have 3 copies in the main deck and 1 copy in the ride deck. And without further ado, that's it for this one. Hope all of you guys enjoyed. Honestly, this deck is very fun to play, having so many different defensive options, having so many different attackers and just abilities to deck stack, get Soul, having one of my favorite finishing combos in the world, especially if my opponent aggroes me, because I love it when they aggro me, and just having so many different variants that you can build, because this is Keter Sanctuary. So like I mentioned earlier, there is the pure aggressive build that doesn't even run heal triggers and just runs fronts and crits, which is also my personal favorite build of this deck. You could run just this build, which is consistent between offense and defense. You can build pure hostage Rezael, which is just pure defense. You can build this deck in so many different ways and use different engines to benefit from it. So without further ado, I'm going to end this one here. I hope all of you guys enjoyed. If you have an interest in this deck, I definitely recommend you try it out because it's a build for almost everyone. So don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, join Discord, follow Twitch, and I'll see you all in the next one. Don't forget to set up your vanguards.